Mary Poppins Returns spoiler review. One thing is for certain, this film has been made with a lot of love. A great deal of care has been taken to bring this film to life. But is love enough? Oh, Mary Poppins, starring Julie Andrews and Dick Van Dyke, is one of my favourite films of all time. Recapturing the essence, the spirit, innocence and joy of the original film and then bringing something fresh to the story this time around was a bold and challenging task. For what it's worth, I'm thrilled they gave it a red-hot go. It's great to see talented, dedicated and passionate artists create a sequel to one of film history's most beloved films. I think they've captured a spoonful of the essence, given it some new life, but in attempting to bring something new, they have rather played it safe, and it amounts to little more than a rehash of all the main story and character beats of the original. It's less Mary Poppins Returns and more Mary Poppins Reruns. I made a conscious effort to not say Mary Floppins, because as funny as it is to say Mary Floppins, the film isn't a complete flop. Lighting malfunction. Emily Blunt's performance initially feels slightly forced and characteristic. That accent sounds overdone and forced, don't you think? We get some great sass from Emily's performance, and I think eventually it feels like Emily hits her stride and becomes her own version of the character rather than a forced Julie Andrews impersonation, which is kind of how it starts out. The portrayal of Mary Poppins in this film lacks some of the same warmth, empathy and sincerity that Julie Andrews' did, and it pushes more towards those arrogant, sassy veins of her character, which were playfully hinted at a few times in the original. Whereas here there are almost no holes barred, which again is good to see a different side to the character of Mary Poppins that we have known for decades. I felt like Mary Poppins Reruns did a lot of eye-rolling, and I got a sense in moments that she actually couldn't stand the children. But this is a general feeling and it's not entirely overwhelming. Overall, Emily Blunt did a commendable job of carrying this film, and she stepped into some immensely large shoes and did a great job of walking in them.
My goodness gracious, glory me.
Lin-Manuel Miranda is good enough, I suppose. A great stunt double for original Bert, if nothing else. However, there's a different camaraderie between Reruns Mary and Jack and original Mary and Bert. There's no subtle romantic story between the pair, which is completely fine and great, but instead we get a half-baked, last-minute, slap-it-on romance between Jane and Jack, and there's zero chemistry between the pair, and the extent of the relationship is sit on me bike! It's absolutely unnecessary. And no thanks, I'd rather walk really. No one came to watch Mary Poppins' third wheel while Jane and Jack ride around on their bike. Michael Banks, played by Ben Whishaw, is fairly obnoxious for most of the film, and the only redeeming thing about his performance is the song he sings about his deceased wife. The main plot/conflict of the film revolves around Michael being a bit of a doofus and falling behind on his mortgage repayments, and so now the bank wants to repossess his home.
If you are unable to pay in full by Friday at midnight, I'm afraid we will have to repossess your home and you will have to vacate the premises.
But wait, he has shares. If only he could find that pesky share certificate that he's lost to prove it. Jane, played by Emily Mortimer, most of her purpose in the film is to frustratingly and in no calm and sensible fashion help Michael throw paper around the house in the same fashion, trying to find the certificate. Marie Kondo would be horrified. The moral of the story, which I think was meant to be, at the end of the day, we only need each other. It's made entirely redundant by the fact that it didn't matter if they had shares or not, because the tuppence that Mr. Banks Sr. invested on behalf of Michael in the original Mary Poppins has gained so much interest, turns out they're filthy, stinking rich. Which also makes Mary Poppins' visit completely and utterly redundant, because the lesson they have actually learned is money solves all problems. And money does in this film. Mary doesn't. So that's dumb. The children are great, but we didn't need 3. There's a fantastic 2D animation sequence which is absolutely stunning and a real highlight of the movie. It pays homage and respect to the then cutting artistry of the original film and adds a wonderful modern element without being derivative. I don't have much else to say, so I thought I'd sum up my review in a song.
We start all songs with silly words that all sound quite the same, like tame and fame and blame and game and shame and lame and maim. all with similar syllables, and that's the point, you see, is all it takes to write a song and no actual creativity. It doesn't matter what we mean, you have to read the lines between. Most of the songs just act like fillers, they certainly aren't the story pillars. Nostalgic references everywhere will trick you into think you care, but don't be fooled or you'll be schooled in substance over flair. Emily Blunt's portrayal of Poppins is sassy, sharp and certain, but it did at the start sound a little like Queen Elizabeth behind a curtain. The cartoon sequence Royal Ball was old school 2D fun, but next time would you be so kind to leave out all the sexual puns? An homage at best, you might. Dick Van Dyke, a delightful sight. Meryl Streep is quite the treat, but that Cannon Man missed the mark. Familiar fuzzy feelings and sharp production design bring a sense of warm nostalgia, and all that's very fine. But despite it all, it lacks some quirks and ultimately ends in a scene where you think, what a great big bunch of jerks! Bunch of jerks! Bunch of jerks!
Mary Poppins Reruns gets 2.5 poor, pulverised penguins. Finished. Pulverised printer. Can you stop? Shh!
Right, that's enough.